Hello. Hi, we are live with Tony the Jonker in another Excel Weekend 7 talk. I'm Cristiano Galvão here. This is Tony the Jonker, MVP. We are live on this Saturday, and it's a pleasure to have you here, Tony. Thank you very much for accepting the invitation. And it's your show. Please be our guest. Your show.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Cristiano, for the invitation and welcome and good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are worldwide. Bom dia para todos. So today we're going to talk about dynamic arrays, and I think in your part of the world it's called matrices dinámicas. So what is this all about the dynamic arrays? It's actually a new feature that has recently come into the new area of Excel, actually the Excel Office 365. So we're going to talk about the power of dynamic arrays. Why should we use dynamic arrays? What are the properties? And is there an overview of the dynamic arrays functions? And maybe also some applications in real life, how we can use dynamic arrays with some pretty nice examples. So what is the power actually of dynamic arrays? Normally, when you enter a formula in Excel, the result will be shown immediately. Like if you look up formula or a sum or some ifs, it will show result in that cell. But this is a special formula. When you enter that formula in a cell, it will automatically expand to the right or down below. So actually, it resulted in a range, so to speak, in a self-adapting range. So why is this very advantageous for us as Excel users? Well, when you are creating reports, you don't actually have to adapt the report yourself anymore by using copy to the right or copy down below, or maybe you want to create a macro that does that job for you. That is not necessary anymore. So no manual intervention, no copy pasting, no macro. And the other advantage, I think, is it's a minimum of number of formulas that you're using. One formula does the job for you. The properties of dynamic arrays. Well, here we have an example of what it looks like. You are actually entering a formula in one position in one cell, and it automatically spills over to the right-hand side and or down below. You will also see when you enter the formula, the dependent formulas, the ones that are being spilled down to the right or down below, are light gray of color. You cannot delete those formulas. If you want to delete all the formulas, you should go back to the official formula where you entered the dynamic array function. You also notice that once you enter this formula, you will see a blue border, which means that all the formulas belong together. Actually, it's one formula. Now, if you are clicking outside the blue border, of course, you won't see it anymore. Things to think of when you are working with dynamic arrays is because they are spilling to the right or down below, you should not have any other data in that area, because you will be blocking the dynamic formula. If you should have something placed in there, then you will see a error message appearing, #spill, !, meaning that the formula cannot grow to the right or down below. The solution is very simple, of course. You should get rid of the blocking stuff, the stuff that's blocking the formula, by deleting that portion of the cells. One thing also that you should remember is that once you create such a dynamic formula area, you cannot use it in a table. You probably know a table is when you do home and select format as table or insert as a table. So dynamic array formats cannot be part of a table. but we still can use, let's say, the advantages of having a table, because a dynamic function is, most cases are based on Excel tables. So always start with an Excel table where your dynamic array formula is based upon. The other stuff is to make it very dynamic is to use the series function. We will see it in a minute when we are using and seeing the different applications. Now, what kind of functions are dynamic array functions? I think these are the 6 functions that I encountered in real life. Those are the functions called series, unique, filter, rand array, sort, and sort by. And again, you can only find these functions in Office Excel 365. And we will discuss, of course, these functions when we are going to have a look at our examples in a minute. I found a few, or actually more than a few, applications where we can use dynamic array formulas. For example, if you want to do some kind of interactive data analysis, because the analysis can grow, it's a very good example where you can apply dynamic array formulas. Another example would be when you want to allocate cash flows to a certain time period. Or maybe you want to create dynamic charts. It's also possible when you have dynamic array formulas. Or a Gantt project plan. The other application I see is when you create a fixed asset and depreciation schedule. Where here you can also use dynamic array formulas. We will see other ones as well, like creating a dummy data set or creating a unique list. I think a very good application would be when you are in the area of working with financial modeling, because financial modeling can become very interactive now and very flexible. You actually don't have to copy the formulas to the right, what normally happens all the time. So this is my small introduction of dynamic array formulas. Now let's get our feet wet by seeing some real life examples. Okay, this is my first example. Let's suppose I want to create a dummy set of data. It happens all the time. We want to create a model and we need some kind of data. Maybe like we need to create many dates, transaction dates. We need to create a region and some dummy amounts. And why do we need a dummy set of data? Maybe because we want to show the possibilities of working with tables or showing how pivot tables are working. And maybe we don't have really a real data set with us. So how do we create a dummy set of data? Let's suppose I want to create a set of dates, transaction dates, that starts from the 1st of January 2020 and runs until the 31st of December 2021. And I want to see maybe 2,000 transactions. How do we do that? Let's go to A2, and now we're going to type an equal sign and use the function series. Series. Just a second. Sorry, it's not series, it's called sequence, because I'm working with different kinds of Excel versions and different languages. Sometimes I'm a little bit confused about what the name of the function is. It's not called series, it's called sequence. So equal sign sequence, click on the affix. I always use the function wizard because then you can see what kind of arguments you need to fill in the function. So now it's going to ask us how many rows do we want to create? We want to create, let's say, 2,000 rows. How many columns? Well, only one column, so it will be 1. And we start with 1, and the step will be 1. If I press enter, you'll see it will now create some numbers, 1, 2, 3, etc. But that's not actually what we want. You don't want to see numbers, you want to see dates. So let's go back to the formula fx. So the start is not a 1, the start will be date. So I'm going to type in the date. And then it will be okay. Just a second. I'm gonna start all over again. This is not okay. I do not want to use actually the sequence function because I want to create some random functions, some random dates. I need to create the rand array function. That's the one I'm using. So sorry for that. I'm going to use the rand array function. Rand array functions. Yes. So how many rows do I want to create? Those are 2,000. How many columns? It will be 1. And we start with the minimum date. So I use the function date for that. Date. Let's say 2020. And then 1, 1. In my area of my world, I'll use the semicolon to separate the arguments. In your part of the world might be comma. Date 2021. Let's say December for 12 and 31st. Okay. And now I have all kinds of dates running from the 6th of February, which is a random date, until the last row here. So now I've indeed created some dummy dates. Now let's suppose I want to also create some dummy regions. Let's say we have 4 regions, east, west, north, and south. So we're going to use the function choose for that one, choose. Index number. I think we're going to use the rand array for this one as well. So you can fetch the rand array formula over here in the name box. So how many rows do I want to see? It will be 2,000 rows. Column will be 1. Minimum of 1, and I think maximum 4 because of 4 regions. Let's go back to choose. And the values will be then east, west, north, and south. Okay. So now it has created out of the box 4 different regions, but that at random. Okay, so now also let's select an amount. We also use again rand array, fx. So how many rows? Again, 3,000. 1 column. Let's have a minimum of, let's say, $1,000, maximum of $9,000. That's okay. And there you have it. So now we have created a dummy set of data, and we can use this for all kinds of purposes, for example. Mind you that you have to pre-format the range for dates and for dollars because it's not done automatically. So let's suppose that you want to have a range of 2,000 rows. Make sure that you already did just to do the formatting. Okay. So let's go to the next example. So the function is called sequence. It's not called series because I'm a bit confused about that one. And I'm using the Dutch version of Excel. I'm using the sometimes the French version, sometimes the German version. So I get a bit confused because these names are also translated in these different languages. But anyway, let's have, for example, the next table. Here we have some cities, we have some dates, and we have some sales. And now we want to have a, let's say, a summary of all the cities and added up together, of course, the sales. So the total sales by city. And of course, you could say we can create a pivot table out of that one, but now we don't want to create a pivot table because we need to, when you use a pivot table, you always need to refresh the pivot table when the data is going to change. And when you're using dynamic formulas, you do not have to change it. So how can I find a list of all my cities? It's with function unique. That's affix. So it's going to ask which is the array that you want to look in. Well, this is the array. I just click on the edge over here, click, and that's the end of the story. And now it will show me all the unique values, all the unique items for all the cities. And again, you see the blue border appearing means that this is indeed a dynamic formula. If you watch the formula, in the formula bar, you see this unique has been the original formula. When you go to the next line, the same formula appears, but it's actually grayed out, as you can see. You cannot delete that formula. It's not permitted. So if you want to delete formula, you have to go to, in this case, F2 and delete the formula. So how do we now calculate this total sales by city? Well, it's actually sum ifs. So we're going to use sum ifs again, sum ifs, fx. Now the sum that we want to, the sum range that we want to add up is this range over here. Just click on the edge, data sales, city sales, because this is a data table. It will show like that. The criteria range will be the city. Click on the edge over here. Now the criteria, if you just point to this cell here, F2, it will only show the result for the city residing in F2. In the old ways, you had to copy the formula down, but I don't want to copy the formula down. It has to happen automatically. So how do I do that now? Let's go back to fx. The thing of it is, you need to type in a hashtag sign after the F2. Means that this is an instruction for the dynamic formula array that you should not only look in F2, but also in F3, F4, and anything that is part of the dynamic array formula. If I press OK, now it automatically spills down towards the end. So that's a really nice way of, let's say, making totals by sales and by city. So if I'm going to add this all up now, it will be 552961. Okay. So this added up together is also then 552961. So really, these are the totals by city, which is really nice. And let's suppose I'm going to change something here. Let's have a high number here in Paris. Let's put there 200,000 number. It automatically changes. This is not going to happen if you have a pivot table, because if the source is going to change, what do you need to do to update your pivot table? You always have to do like data refresh. Remember that one, data refresh all. That's stuff that you need to do with the pivot table. Here you do not have to change anything. It automatically will be calculated and will be spilled down. Now, some people might object that this is not in alphabetical order. Well, you can have this in alphabetical order by having the formula of the function sort in front of it, sort. Bring parentheses, closing parentheses now. You see now it's also sort by alphabet. So now we have unique together with sort. Really nice. So let's see what we have here. We have here some data projects. Okay, let's have a look at this. Here we have some data projects. It's just an input table. It's an Excel table. It's called data projects with some projects, with some transaction dates and certain amounts. Now we can, of course, add some projects again. And now we want to have an allocation as follows. We need to have this table here create this table whereby we can allocate the amounts. Those are payable amounts, and they need to be allocated for this future timeline based on the following parameters. I want to see a timeline of 12 periods. We start with the year 2021, and the payment days are 30. So meaning that 30 days after 22nd of March, show me the amount, and the amount will appear in April, as you can see. Here we have the 5th of May. 30 days after that will be somewhere in June. So the amount of 943 would be shown here in 943. So actually what I've created here is a payment allocation table, so to speak. But it has to be done automatically. As you can see, I also built in some spinners. So if I would, let's say, have only 11 periods, you see what happens here? I'm bringing this table down now. It automatically shows me only now the 6 periods, or go back and have more periods. Also the payment days. Now it's 30 days, but I cannot change, for example, into 5 days. You see what happens with the allocation? It automatically will be adapted. So how is this now done actually? The thing that I've only entered are cell. These are the headers that I have entered manually. I also entered then parameters here. I also added period number at the start here. So now I had to find out, show me a list of all the projects that are entered in my table, in my data projects table. Now, this is what I did. Very simple, equal signs, and then I would select or just click on the edge of the projects, and it will automatically show me all the projects. So for here, I did not even use a function because it's a table. It will automatically interpret this as a table. Same story here. Just going to the data projects data. I want to show you again how I did it. So let's delete over here. So everything is on reference, obviously. So I do equal sign. I go to data projects. I just click here on this edge over here, click, enter, and there you have it. You see? So Excel already knows you want to create some kind of a dynamic formula. Well, we did not use any array function for this one. Same story with the amounts. Now, because I'm going to create a table, and the table, of course, will show all the different months, so I need to have some kind of a dynamic built-in towards going to the right. So what I did is I created this sequence function for the period. So what does the sequence function, how does it work? Actually, it will show how many rows you want to create one row and how many columns. Well, so many columns as duration, which is cell C2, has been assigned to. So 11. Start with 1, step 1. So it automatically now spills down to the right. Then I have here a start year, a function for the start year. So how does that work? It starts with the cell which is called start year, and then the month can be found in E2, but because it has to happen also for F2 and G2, I entered the hashtag sign after that one, so it automatically spills over to the right hand side. Same story with the end of month. I also use some kind of a date, year, and month function. This here is nothing more than look this up in this row number 3. So this equal sign E3 hashtag. And finally, how is this then going to work with the allocation? Ladies and gentlemen, this is just one function. This is just one formula which does it all. This formula actually nothing says actually C7 hashtag sign, which is a date, plus the payment dates should be greater or equal to E3, the start of the month, times, which means and, same expression should be less or equal to E4 hashtag sign, which is the end date. And if both are true, then we have 1 times 1 times the D7 hashtag sign, which is the amount. So this is a really nice example how you can use dynamic formulas to create dynamic tables, so to speak, dynamic allocation tables. Yeah, so dynamic calculation tables are not just having a dynamic row or a dynamic column, it could also be a dynamic range. So in the old days, remember in the old days, we had to actually copy this formula towards the right, as many columns as there were, and down below. And obviously, when new projects were appearing, let's suppose we will have some new projects down below here. So let's change this now into project number 8, for example. With project number 8. Let's go back to my project sheet, and there it is. Project 8 is already there, you see? Also, when I add some new projects here, project 10, for example, project 10. For 9,000, for example. So one item has been added to it, and now it's already there, see? But as you can see, I did not format my dates column yet, so I need to do formatting here for the new row. But it automatically grows down. So I hope you really enjoyed having a look here at the dynamic formulas, or as it's called, matrices dinámicas. And should you have any questions, please don't hesitate to send an email here at a.de.jonker@kpnmail.nl. And I want to thank you for joining me here on this afternoon, my afternoon that is, on this Excel weekend, and have lots of fun watching the other videos as well. Thank you.